welcome to the Plugged In podcast. We are joined by Jared, a Portland local rideshare driver today. Hi, Jared.
Hi, how are you, Lindsay?
Doing well.
Nice to meet you. Yes, I got my co-pilot. He usually rides with me every day.
What do riders think about him?
They love him. I always say, you're going to get more tips or this or that.
Everyone loves your dog.
Usually the girls just fawn all over him, but the guys, they like him too.
Could you tell us how long you've lived in Portland and when you moved here?
I moved here in 1986. I've been here about 35 years, I guess. That would be.
Where are you from originally?
Southern Cal. Don't like to admit that, but yeah.
Well, you've been here longer than many people that I've encountered, so.
I had a lady call me a common law Oregonian. I like that.
That's a good term. We need that, distinction.
Yeah, well, it's the longest place I've lived anywhere, so I really love Portland.
Yeah, what made you want to move here in the first place?
It's environmentally friendly, it's green and lush, and you have all four seasons. And sounds weird, but I hated spending Christmas on the beach. What got me when I first came here was the people. I went shopping, and my brothers went, I went shopping for groceries or this or that and the other thing. I got in line. The lady turned around and started talking to me like she knew me forever. I thought, well, maybe just a strange lady. Got to the register, the dude was the same way. And that would be that way for the 10 days I was there. Just everywhere I went, people were just extremely friendly, like they knew me forever.
Yeah, the friendliness is really nice.
Yeah, it's disarming.
And you probably bring that to your rideshare work.
I try very much. Try to make it a very pleasant ride. I figure if they're paying for a ride, it should be a nice ride. I keep my car clean. I'm freshly showered and usually shaved. But yeah, I like people. I like conversing. I like the different views. I like the different cultures. And I have learned a lot in my 5 years. I've given CEOs rides. I've given marketing people rides. I've given cooks rides. You know, the entire spectrum. And each one of them has been an interesting ride.
So 5 years total you've been doing rideshare?
5 years, about 40 hours a week, yeah.
Solid. Yeah, that's nice. How many miles a week does that amount to?
It depends. It depends. Like during the winter, things slow down. So it's just basically back and forth to work, just the locals taking them to work. So during the winter, the miles I clock are much fewer. During the summer, longer rides. People coming from the airport, they're going down to Salem, they're going out to Hillsborough, they're going north out to Ridgefield. So longer rides during the summer. Mm-hmm. You know, some all the way down to Wilsonville. But so on an average, 100 miles to 200 miles a day.
So what got you into rideshare driving originally? What piqued your interest?
You know, I was still in school. I needed my free time, and I thought, well, let's see how this goes. I needed to make money, you know, being a student, and it was great that I could just go out when I needed to.
Why do you like driving for work?
I love driving, and I have probably clocked more miles than I can count since I was 16. I like driving, so I figured if I can make money driving, why not? And it leaves me time for my other interests, which are I like to learn new things.
Yeah, such as when you were a student, it was compatible with your schedule.
Yeah. No, I went back to school because, you know, it was something to do, but I love the sciences. So I used to work as an R&D tech for an aerospace company in Southern Cal, and I used to do a lot of things, but the electronics was a thing I never understood. I never knew. Although I knew all the components, I didn't know how to create my own circuits. Now I do.
We have I only know a very literally elementary level. I taught robotics to elementary schoolers for a year.
Oh, that must have been fun.
So fun. Making a circuit, we would describe it like it was a maze.
Pretty much the different components, and it depends on what they do and what you want them to do, but yeah. Especially for programming, it's like little modules, but yeah, it's great.
And you now have an electric vehicle.
Yeah, electric vehicles are great. They really are. Great for the environment and great for your pocketbook. What amazed me was how much money I didn't have to spend anymore, or how much time I didn't have to spend time waiting in line to get gas, or, gee, I better go get gas before it closes. And now I don't have to worry about any of that. I go home, plug it in, and I'm good. Yeah,
if you have at-home charging, that's peak convenience.
Well, I will say that's what makes the electric car the electric car. If you buy the electric car, spend the extra $500 to $1,200 to have that installed in your home. That is the complete package. That's what makes it work. And if you're, more and more apartments are having them installed. When I first moved in to the apartment complex I'm in, I said, I won't move in unless you install my charger, because the chargers they had weren't compatible with mine. It would have taken 2 days to charge that one. So they said, okay. It cost them $1,000 to install it, but that was the arrangement.
Yeah, it's a month of rent anyway, so.
And I would encourage anyone who moves into an apartment complex to make that a question. Do you have chargers for my car?
Absolutely.
Because they need to be installed in almost all apartment complexes, because that's really what I believe the goal should be. Replace ICE vehicles with electric vehicles. Keep in mind, I'm a car guy. I used to build hot rods, and I've probably put together a couple motors, and I've burned my hands changing plugs, and I love cars, but I also love tech, and I got to combine the two with an electric car.
Yeah, and then the third component is the environment.
That's why I love Portland. I mean, that's why I stayed. It's so beautiful here. Why would I want to poison the air I breathe? I mean, I had forgotten, I have asthma, so I had forgotten what it's like to be outside my car and walk up the street where there's cars at a stoplight spewing their gas. And in the 80 feet that it took me to get from my car to the door to get in the building, I was already coughing. And I was like, no, we got to get people to go electric. I like breathing fresh air.
And you're setting the example. You're an early adopter. You started out in a Volkswagen EGolf, right?
EGolf in 2015, yeah. In fact, I still have that one. It's kind of like, you know, my first electric car.
Yeah.
And it's a great car.
And so you have experience. Could you kind of tell us about that? You have experience driving the EGolf, and then?
When I first got the EGolf, it was just a replacement, but I quickly realized how much money I was saving. I mean, literally, I went to school and back, and I just plugged it in. And when I had free time, I went here, I went there, went shopping. It was great. And then I said, when I found out about Lyft and Uber, I said, well, let's give it a shot. And I used to cheat. I'd plug the car in and stay at home and wait for a call, because back then I lived in the Alberta Arts District. So I'd wait for a call, run out to the car, jump in, take off, make my rides. And back then in 2015, it was still taking off, so it wasn't as busy. So then I'd head back to the house, wait for another ride, take off. And that's how it worked out pretty good. So when I was doing that, I could drive all day, because I'd just come back home, put it back on, and it was easy. But when things picked up in 2016 and 2017, now I was having to be out. And then I have to work my way back, wait 3 hours, and then drive 3 hours. So that was a bit of a pain. But once I decided to go all the time, I said, well, I need a Tesla.
Yeah, so how did getting into a Tesla change things?
Well, it's a little different driving a $110,000 car when you first take it out. You don't want to scratch it. You're afraid everyone's going to hit you. But after a while, it's just a car. That's really what it is. It's just a car. And I spec'd that car for the strict purpose of sharing that car, because I had an electric car already. But it was a little car. Like, you couldn't take it anywhere. You couldn't take it on a trip. You couldn't. So people said, it's just an around town car. You get into a Tesla, you can take that car anywhere, and now it's a real car. And so people were more impressed with that car. But the price still scared them off. But now in 2020, you have, you know, more cost-effective cars that are out there in the electric vehicles. And you have more programs to help you get them. And it's just, they're easier to get and more cost-effective. Sometimes I wish I'd waited, saved my money, and man, what I could get now with the money I spent on those cars. But at the same time, I wouldn't have the experiences I've had. I wouldn't have the knowledge that I've gained driving those cars. And I wouldn't have had the fun promoting those cars to other people like I do now. And I'm not paid for it. I just do it because I think it's the right thing to do.
That's neat. And that's definitely something that I've thought about Tesla, even myself, is that there is that bit of a higher upfront cost even compared to other models. But what does a used Tesla go by that you've seen out there?
You can get a 2014, 2015 Model S, depending on the model, anywhere from $18,000 to $26,000.
You know, that's a lot more reasonable than
yeah.
I think a lot of people realize.
Well, just the return on a car like that. I mean, to be quite honest, I've had that EGolf over 5 years, and there's a mandatory service at 32. I didn't have to take it in. I didn't take it in until about 45,000 miles, and I paid them $150 to tell me there was nothing wrong with my car. So I'm like, I'm not going to bring it in here again. I don't need to bring it in. And at about 55,000 miles, it had this is the only problem I've ever had, and it was with that EGolf. But it was a newer car when it first came out, and so it burned out the electronics on the charger. So I actually had to take it in. And most of it was covered under warranty, even after 5 years. But it did cost me $1,200 out of my pocket. And I have to say, after 5 years of owning that car, one set of tires and $1,200, that is still the cheapest car I've ever owned.
And did you, on top of it, take advantage of state and or federal rebates?
I did get the rebates at the time. So yeah, I took complete advantage of both of those. Knocked about 10 grand off the price. It was great.
Knocked about 10 grand?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's solid.
When I was trying to promote both the EGolf and the Tesla to the local drivers at the airport, first question I asked them is, how much money are you spending on gas a month? And it was anywhere from $200 to $400. I said, how much is your payment? And anywhere from $300 to $500. I said, between your gas and your payment, that's what the car is going to cost you. You're not going, and you won't have to spend on gas. And they said, well, what about my electricity? Is my electricity bill going to go up? And I said, yeah, about $10. You know, it's really cheap. And they don't notice it. And you don't. I never noticed it on my electric bill, to be quite honest. You know, when I had my house, the electric bill didn't seem to change.
So a lot of drivers that I've spoken with have what's called range anxiety. So concern over
with range anxiety.
Yeah, how far you can go on one charge. Is it going to be enough?
To be honest, in the early cars, you had to learn to drive in neutral. You had to let that coast as much as you could. But since 2017, the new models have come out, even with the EGolf, giving them greater range. You got literally rated at 125 miles or 150 mile range, and that's real. When they tell me I can go 85 miles on the highway, I can go 85 miles on the highway, and not doing 50 or something. I'm doing 65. I got a little bit of the air going, you know, so it'll do the full mileage. But now you got the Nissan Leaf. Those are, I think, 225. You got the EGolf. You have the Chevy Bolt, which does 238. And 200 miles range, that is more than enough to get you through a workday. Whether you're doing freeway, around town, out to Hillsboro, Troutdale, that's enough. And you can still run the air. You know, you're not going to be out there, you know, either freezing or sweating in your car. It's a comfortable ride for you and your passengers. So the newer models are out there to give you that plus 200 mile range to do the job.
The rideshare market has kind of changed
Yeah.
in the past few months. So are you focused mostly on rideshare, or have you also gotten into delivery services?
I've done deliveries, but not food. I'm not going to put food in my car. There's another smaller company called Renly, which does package delivery. The beauty of the Tesla, though, when I do have to ride with a passenger, is what is little known about the Model S. It has a full-size HEPA filter. And so it purifies the air in the cabin better than an N95 mask will.
I'm very glad that you have that.
It is a great feature.
Yeah.
It purifies the air. It's so awesome. There's just things about these cars, the electric cars, that the technology can go different ways now in terms of what it's going to do for the passengers.
How long is the typical ride in Portland?
So during the week, morning hours, usually 7 to 10 minutes. Every now and then I'll get one that runs me south into Wilsonville or north into Vancouver. But in the morning, most of the time we're going either across or to the airport. Okay. So they're usually short rides.
And you can go all day without charging, right?
In my Model S, I go all day.
Yeah.
I mean, I've clocked 12 hours in that car on a day or two, just because it took me way out on the other side of Hillsboro, and I was bound and determined to catch rides on the way in, and I did. And so then they took me south or here or there, so it took me a little bit longer to get home. But yeah, I've clocked 12 hours.
How low do you let your range get before you turn off the app and head home to charge?
I have had my Model S at 13% and out in Hillsboro, and I still didn't turn it off.
and you made it.
Yeah,
Just
because
fine.
I, unlike guys, I don't run by miles, I run by percent because I'm used to a cell phone. So 10% is about 35 miles.
35 miles, okay.
So at 13%, I mean, I had plenty of room to get home, and I rolled in at about 5% when I got home that day.
How did you research the type of car that you wanted?
With the Tesla, that was after I had my EGolf and realized the furthest I could go was Salem, and I would have to wait there and get charged up. I started looking around for other cars, and that's when I came across the Tesla, and I said, ooh, that's a big jump. So it took me a little longer to get there.
Yeah, thankfully there's a big jump in range too.
Yes, and that was, I didn't realize it was a thing, but last year I was watching on YouTube, and all these guys were saying, I took my road trip in my Tesla. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I bought that Tesla, and 2 months later, I was headed down to Arizona. And what was funny is one of the charging stations I rolled into was literally in a gas station for semis, or truck stop, and there were only 2 chargers. And they were hard to find. I had to roll around until I found it. I charged up there. So 2 years later, I went back to Arizona. Same city, a block over, 40 superchargers. And I was like, now this is it. What they had found out is that was a hub in terms of direction, and so they needed to install more. And but it was great. And now I can go anywhere on that Tesla. I mean, when I first went, I had definite stops. Now, Tesla has installed a lot of chargers.
Yeah, and I mean, there's more and more that are, even through what's happening, like more and more are getting installed all the time, and people talk about seeing chargers now everywhere. Can you attest to that? Do you think, like, do you start to notice?
I do. In fact, I was quite surprised when I found them earlier. I had no idea they were there. And in fact, now that I know that Adidas has them, I know that Nike has them. They seem more and more at the corporate offices. They're installing them because I guess the offices are encouraging their employees to buy electric, which is great. I think more corporate companies should offer programs to have their employees buy electric cars.
Yeah, that's called workplace charging, and there are programs around workplace charging, and it's nice that as a rideshare driver, you can actually pull in and utilize a lot of the charging that's at businesses, that's at hotels.
It is nice, actually. It's getting easier and easier every day. This is like not quite at the ground floor, but getting it at the best time, because now everyone's encouraging you to get one. There are financial programs, there are used vehicles, and they're just greater availability of charging stations to use these cars in.
Mm-hmm. Greater availability of cars themselves. Yeah, I guess we could go on, couldn't we? So why did you pick an EV?
When you go from buying a $35,000 car to a $110,000 car, you better be calculating a lot of savings there. And because I not only drive for work, but I like to take long road trips, the car literally starts to pay for itself. I mean, it's just amazing.
What does maintaining your car look like?
So with my other cars, there was always, you had the oil changes, you had fuel costs, you had filter costs, and then you also had your fluid costs and maintenance for your wipers and everything else. With an electric vehicle, you don't have any of that except maybe your fluid cost and your wipers and a set of tires. Brakes do not even become an issue because you have your regenerative braking. And because brakes are designed to stop a vehicle at speed, they last so much longer when you're stopping the car at under 10 miles an hour, which is when the actual mechanical brakes engage. So the EGolf probably won't need brakes for another 5-10 years. My Tesla, maybe a little more because it's more fun to drive. But literally the motors do 95% of the braking, not the mechanical brakes. So just things where you would think you'd spend on, you just don't. And Ben Franklin is right. A penny saved is a penny earned, only it's a whole lot of pennies now.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people would also kind of wonder about are there any underlying costs? Like what could catch up with you? And then what comes up is the cost of the battery.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, but most of those assumptions are made on the bad press that a bad battery pack got. The truth is the chemistry will last a long time. You can expect a good 10 to 20 years out of the battery pack. The Tesla is rated for 8 years that they'll replace it. And after that, I will maintain 95% of my charge capability. And then it will slowly degrade after that. So, and a lot of that depends, the battery pack depends on how you charge it. For instance, the EGolf does really good because I charge it to max and I empty it. I mean, on my EGolf, I've rolled in on 1 mile sometimes. And with my Tesla, the same thing, full charge, and I empty it. I don't come in until I got less than 20%. And so I go through that. So when you cycle a battery in that manner, it lasts a lot longer. When you mismanage the battery, and you can, you will degrade it faster. So if you constantly charging it to full because you want to have it at full, that's the worst thing you can do. Charge your battery and then run it down. And then charge it again. And if you want to increase the longevity, which is easy for my Tesla, I don't have to charge it to full. I charge it to 80%. And that 80% gets me more than my 200 miles.
What would you say to a driver that said, yeah, well, that battery cost could be a lot? You know, all that lack of maintenance and gas sounds great, but what if you have to pay for the battery?
Well, here's the beauty right now. Technology has changed so much in the last 4 years. By the time you're ready to replace your battery, the battery cost will have dropped to less than a quarter of the current battery packs now. Battery pack now for a Nissan Leaf is about 10 grand. Same thing for an EGolf. The battery pack on my Tesla, on the current Teslas right now, is 0 because they will replace them for you, okay? They haven't run out yet.
If you get a warranty and that kind of thing too, you can kind of avoid that concern.
So the thing is to cycle the battery properly, get a little bit of that education there, and then make the most of it. And by the time you're ready for a new battery, it'll be a fraction of the cost. And keep in mind, with a conventional ICE vehicle, if you burn up a transmission, well, there's 5 grand. You burn up a motor, there's another 5 grand. So coming to an electric vehicle where you don't spend that money for years and years, and yeah, it may come up all at once, like I didn't anticipate the $1,200 for the EGolf, still, in terms of overall usage, it's a minor expense. So being a little older and being a little bit more experienced, I managed to just put money aside for these things, and if I never spend it, well, I get a good set of toys. If I spend it, perfect, I had it planned.
How do your riders like being in the EV?
So when I was using my roommate's Model 3, I picked up some gentlemen at the airport who were fresh from India. They were going to be here for a few months working at Intel, and I was driving them out. These guys were Tesla fanboys. And the moment I told them that that was the performance Model 3, they were so happy. When I dropped them off, they said, "Can we take a picture with you? Can we take a picture with the car?" I said, yeah, whatever makes you happy. It was good. I like that. I like making people happy.
So, Jared, what would you say to a rideshare driver that is thinking about getting an EV?
So my advice to a rideshare driver who is considering getting an EV is, what is taking you so long? Buy it now. Buy what you can afford, buy what you're going to like, buy what you're going to use. But the money you spend will be the money you save.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you for being here.
It has been my pleasure. Anything I can do to promote the increased use of EVs, I'm glad to help.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing Jett.
My pleasure. He goes with me everywhere.